She was young, beautiful, and intelligent. Kings desired her. Alliances were built around her name, and then one of the most dangerous men in history chose her. Henry VIII, feared, ruthless, a king whose wives were cast aside, destroyed, even executed. To be chosen by him was not an honour, it was a sentence. Most women had no choice, but Christina of Denmark did something almost unthinkable. She refused him. "If I had 2 heads," she said, "I would happily put one at the disposal of the King of England." Christina of Denmark was born in November 1521. She was the youngest daughter of Christian II of Denmark and Isabella of Austria. Despite her title of Denmark, her life was far from stable. Her father was deposed when she was still a child, and the family fled into exile in the southwestern Netherlands. During this time, Christina and her siblings lived under the care of their uncle, Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. They were primarily looked after by his sister, Mary of Hungary, their aunt. Her mother died suddenly in 1526 in Ghent. Even in grief, Christina's father could not let go of his desire to reclaim the crown, an obsession that would become his undoing in 1532. When Christina was just 11 years old, he made one final attempt to take the throne. His uncle, the sitting King of Denmark, stopped him and imprisoned him for the rest of his life, as if tragedy had not already struck enough. Christina's brother died that same year. This left her and her older sister Dorothea as the only heirs to the stolen throne, and placed them both in a dangerous position. Though their uncle Charles offered them shelter, his motives were far from selfless. He saw the sisters as valuable pieces in the European marriage game, and began searching for suitors even before they came of age. Not long after their arrival in exile at the Dutch court, Christina's family was visited by an English envoy with an unexpected suggestion. One of the sisters should marry Henry Fitzroy, the son of King Henry VIII. But there was a problem. Fitzroy was illegitimate, born not to Queen Catherine of Aragon, but to Henry's mistress, Bessie Blount. Though Christina's family had fallen on difficult times, Charles expected more for his nieces than a boy born outside of wedlock, and he rejected the offer. Unfortunately, it would not be the last Christina heard of Henry VIII, or of insulting proposals. That very year, as Christina's father was imprisoned, Charles began to think more carefully about how useful his niece's marriages could be. When Francesco II Sforza, the Duke of Milan, came looking for a bride, he turned his attention to Christina's older sister Dorothea. Charles recoiled at the idea, but instead offered the younger, and in his view less valuable, Christina under deeply troubling terms. The Duke of Milan was nearly 30 years older than the 11-year-old Christina, and was in poor health. Yet this did not stop Charles from proposing a proxy marriage, a swift long-distance union, followed by immediate consummation of the marriage as soon as Christina arrived in Milan. But Christina had at least one guardian looking out for her. Even in the 16th century, many believed that such a young princess should not be rushed into marriage, especially to a much older man. Her aunt, Mary of Hungary, was shocked by her brother's plan and decided to act. Before the Milanese envoys could take Christina away, Mary claimed that she was ill and quickly moved her to a more remote part of the Netherlands, using serious affairs as an excuse. Unfortunately, this excuse could only delay the inevitable. In May 1534, not yet 13 years old, Christina was finally married in person to the Duke of Milan, yet the outcome was not what she might have feared. Christina discovered she got along well with her husband, who had redecorated his palace for her arrival and eventually granted her a court of her own. It was during this time that Christina began to understand her growing power and influence she held over those around her. Her beauty became the subject of admiration, but it was her intelligence and vibrant personality that truly set her apart. Across the Milanese court and beyond, she was seen as a symbol of elegance, promise, and a hopeful future. But for Christina, hope was a fragile thing, and the future would not be kind. The Duke of Milan had long been a fragile man. A poisoning attempt in his youth had left his hands paralyzed, and he depended on a cane to move about. As the months passed alongside his teenage bride, he grew increasingly frail. By the end of 1535, it was clear his time was running out. In October, just weeks before Christina turned 14, he died, leaving her a young, childless widow. Strangely, in many ways, it was the best thing that could have happened to her. Though she had no child to strengthen her position, Christina, as the Duke's widow, still held land rights and remained widely admired in Milan. But this new independence came at a cost. Suddenly, some of the most powerful men in Europe, including her uncle Charles, the Pope, and the French king's son, either sought her hand in marriage or tried to control who would marry her. For Christina, there was only one choice. Fed up with the endless scheming of powerful men, she left Milan in 1537 and returned to Brussels to live with her beloved aunt, Mary of Hungary. Mary had fallen ill shortly after Christina's earlier departure, perhaps from worry, and was overjoyed to see her again. Their reunion was deeply emotional, but peace did not last long. News spread quickly that Christina was single again. Soon, one of the most dangerous men in Europe came calling, King Henry VIII. He sent his court painter, Hans Holbein, across Europe to paint portraits of potential brides. Holbein reportedly had only a few hours to capture Christina's likeness in Brussels, yet he created one of the finest female portraits of the Renaissance. Henry was said to be captivated by the image. And even today, it is easy to see why. The young Duchess appears dignified, intelligent, and quietly strong, qualities that feel remarkably modern. Christina quickly became one of Henry's top choices, but that did not mean she wanted anything to do with him. This time the offer was bigger, not the king's son, the king himself, but Henry VIII came with a terrifying reputation. By now he had already gone through 3 wives, divorcing Catherine of Aragon, executing Anne Boleyn, and losing Jane Seymour in childbirth. And if that wasn't enough, he was even older than Christina's first husband. It is no surprise that Christina felt no excitement at the thought of becoming Queen of England, and she did not hide her feelings. According to one of the most quoted lines in Tudor history, Christina is said to have remarked, "If I had 2 heads, one should be at the King of England's disposal." It is one of the sharpest political lines ever attributed to a royal woman. Whether the exact wording is apocryphal or not, it perfectly reflects her intelligence and self-awareness. Royal families across Europe were closely connected. Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, was Christina's great-aunt, and also the aunt of Mary of Hungary. That alone made the idea unthinkable. For this reason, Mary strongly opposed Henry as a potential husband, even without considering that he had already ordered the execution of one of his wives. This time, the 2 women got their wish, but not without a fight. Henry didn't give up easily. The self-declared divine King of England spent months pursuing the famously beautiful Christina of Denmark, determined to make her his next queen. But by January 1539, reality set in. Mary of Hungary had made one thing crystal clear to his envoys: this marriage was never going to happen. One English diplomat even warned Thomas Cromwell that Henry should fix his most noble stomach somewhere else. Christina had escaped Henry VIII. By this time, Christina herself was in love with René of Chalon, Prince of Orange, and their connection was clear to all during the Christmas festivities at the Brussels court. Even dressed in mourning, Christina dazzled those around her, and René, heir to the powerful House of Nassau, was utterly captivated. But love didn't matter. Not to Charles V. Determined to secure political advantage, he tore the pair apart in October 1540. As part of a new alliance with Lorraine, he ordered René to marry Anne of Lorraine, and, in a calculated twist, engaged Christina to Anne's brother Francis of Lorraine. It was a cruel arrangement and one that would prove far from harmonious. With no power to refuse, Christina married Francis in 1541, and yet the situation carried a sharp irony. Francis had once been promised to Anne of Cleves, who had since become Henry VIII's 4th wife after Christina turned him down. In contrast to her earlier experiences, Christina's second marriage proved to be a far happier one. Her relationship with Francis is described as affectionate and stable, and together they had 3 children before his death in 1545. Following his passing, Christina became regent for their young son. However, her authority was challenged when the King of France stripped her of custody. Determined, Christina fought to be reunited with her child and eventually succeeded, later serving as his trusted advisor once he came of age and married. Christina died on December 10th, 1590 in Tortona in the Duchy of Milan. She was laid to rest at the Cordeliers convent in Lorraine.